On the surface, life carried on as normal in the sprawling suburbs of Bradford, a city in West Yorkshire known for its proud industrial past and a gritty, down-to-earth resilience. Children played in the streets, neighbors chatted over garden fences, and the rhythm of daily life seemed unbroken. But behind the quiet terraced houses of areas like Manningham and Undercliff, a massive and highly sophisticated criminal enterprise was taking shape, operating entirely in the shadows. It all revolved around a single, anonymous phone number, a line that became the dark heart of a city's drug problem, generating a volume of traffic that would rival a major corporation. In just over a year, between mid-2017 and mid-2018, that one line reportedly received a staggering 229,000 calls. That's over 620 calls a day, every single day. It averages out to 26 calls an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This wasn't a taxi firm overwhelmed by demand or a phenomenally popular takeaway. This was the Sully Line, a brutally efficient drug empire, estimated to be worth around £4 million, which operated with the cold, calculated precision of a modern tech startup. It supplied heroin and crack cocaine on demand, never closing, never sleeping, and holding a vulnerable population in its grip. This is the story of how a simple ring and bring phone line revolutionized Bradford's drug trade, the corporate-style hierarchy that scaled the business to astonishing heights, and the painstaking police investigation, Operation Stalebank, that was tasked with bringing the whole thing crashing down. It all started with a single, disposable phone number. The masterminds behind the Sully Line weren't just common thugs. They were criminal entrepreneurs who identified a clear gap in the market. They looked at the landscape of traditional street dealing, a world defined by turf wars, unpredictable quality, constant violence, and high risk for both dealer and user, and they saw an opportunity for disruption. Why bother with the chaos and inefficiency of the old ways when you could offer a streamlined, professional, and entirely customer-focused service? Police would later call it a ring and bring system, a label that captured its stark simplicity. The business model was ruthlessly effective. Users, often desperate and in the throes of addiction, would call the number from public phone boxes to maintain anonymity. They place an order for heroin or crack cocaine as if they were ordering a pizza. A dispatcher would take the call, and a dedicated driver with a dealer was sent out to meet them, often in just a few minutes. For the city's addicts, it was a game changer, discreet, predictable, and dependable. There was no more need to hang around on dangerous street corners, hoping to find a familiar face in a crowd. For the criminals, it was a low-risk, high-reward model built for maximum profit and scalability. This chilling efficiency allowed the Sully Line to rapidly corner the market, growing from one humble phone line into the biggest and most dominant drug supply chain in Bradford, with its operational heartland centered in areas like Manningham and Barker End. It was a genius business model, but one that sold human misery. What do you think is more dangerous, a chaotic street gang or a highly organized drug corporation like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Now, let's break down how this disturbing empire was built. A corporate-style empire. To truly get your head around the Sully Line's unprecedented success, you have to stop thinking of it as a street gang and start seeing it for what it was, a meticulously structured business with a clear corporate hierarchy. At the very top were the directors, the men who ran the entire show from safe distance. Court records later identified brothers Muhammad Iyaz and Muhammad Hassan, along with Tasawwur Aslam, as the key figures in charge. They were the CEOs of this criminal enterprise. They rarely, if ever, touched the drugs themselves. Instead, they acted as executives, managing logistics, overseeing the workforce, and strategically working in shifts to ensure the business ran non-stop, 24 hours a day. Their hands-off approach was designed to insulate them from prosecution. As Judge Jonathan Rose would later state in court, it was a business that never closes. Below the directors, you had a layer of middle management crucial for the day-to-day running of the operation. There were trusted lieutenants like Mujahid Mahmood, who was responsible for overseeing large parts of the street-level operation, ensuring the supply chain remained unbroken and the dealers stayed in line. He was the equivalent of a regional manager, tasked with hitting targets and managing the frontline staff. Then there was the communications man, Sheraz Mahmood. In a business that lived or died by its phone number, its sole piece of branding, his role was absolutely vital. He was the IT department, tasked with keeping the line active at all costs. If one SIM card was compromised or blocked, he had to immediately source and activate another, diverting calls and ensuring there was absolutely no downtime for the customers. Any interruption in service meant lost profits and a potential loss of market share. The next level down was logistics and inventory management. A man named Amir Raymond acted as the storeman. For a reported weekly fee of up to £700, he allowed the gang to use his home as a central warehouse for the heroin and crack cocaine. His house on Lumb Lane was not just a stash house. It was a fulfillment center. Here, bulk quantities of drugs were received, cut, and packaged into individual street deals, ready for distribution. When police finally raided his address, they found 561 individual wraps of Class A drugs. But this was just a snapshot, a tiny fraction of the product that passed through his hands on a weekly basis. Finally, at the bottom of the pyramid, you had the public face of the business, the street dealers and drivers. These were the low-level, expendable employees who took all the significant risks for a fraction of the profits. They made the dangerous hand-to-hand sales across every corner of Bradford. People like Harim Hussein, just a teenager at the time, and her driver Muhammad Vanik Khan were the foot soldiers of this empire. They were the delivery drivers, the customer service reps, the visible part of an invisible machine delivering misery in tiny plastic bags for hours on end. This slick division of labor, from the insulated directors down to the disposable couriers, was the key to the Sully Line's resilience. It protected the leadership and kept the operation running like a well-oiled, multi-million-pound machine. This corporate structure was incredibly effective. Do you think businesses like this are the future of organized crime? Share this video with a friend who's interested in true crime, and let's discuss it. Up next, we'll see how the police started to fight back against this invisible empire. The investigation begins. For a terrifyingly long time, the Sully Line seemed untouchable. The empire was booming, its profits were soaring, and its structure seemed impenetrable. But while the gang was counting its money, the police were starting to connect the dots. The sheer volume of drug activity in neighborhoods like Manningham and Barker End, areas historically associated with the drug trade, was becoming impossible to ignore. Intelligence reports and whispers on the street all pointed towards one highly organized and utterly dominant ring and bring service that had pushed nearly all competitors aside. Police on patrol noticed distinct patterns. Streams of known addicts making brief, purposeful trips to specific public phone boxes, followed by short, furtive meetings with cars that would appear and disappear in minutes. This wasn't random. It was a coordinated, systematic process. In response, West Yorkshire Police launched a dedicated investigation, later known as Operation Stalebank, to dismantle this network. The challenge, however, was immense. How do you take down a business with no central office, whose main asset is a cheap, disposable phone number, and whose staff are a scattered, ever-changing network of individuals spread all over a major city? The leadership was insulated, the dealers were expendable, and the customers were unlikely to talk. The answer lay in a combination of old-fashioned, painstaking police work and cutting-edge surveillance. Investigators began the monumental task of analyzing the Sully Line's phone data. The 229,000 calls logged over that single year didn't just represent drug deals. They were a digital breadcrumb trail. By using cell-site analysis, officers could track the phone's movements, building a geographical map of the conspiracy. They could see which dealers were active in which areas and at what times. They painstakingly worked to link the anonymous burner phones of the dealers back to their personal handsets, slowly unmasking the individuals involved. They patiently put the puzzle together, piece by digital piece, figuring out who did what, from the directors giving orders from afar to Sheraz Mahmood, the man frantically working to keep the phone line alive. To gather the irrefutable evidence needed for conviction, undercover officers were deployed in one of the most dangerous roles in policing. They had to pose as desperate addicts to make direct contact with the gang. This included a female officer who bravely put herself at immense risk, buying drugs directly from the line and recording the transactions to gather critical first-hand evidence. Simultaneously, covert surveillance teams worked in the shadows, tailing the dealers' cars from a distance. They meticulously documented the routes, linking the drivers to the stash houses like Amir Raymond's, and, slowly but surely, tracing the chain of command back towards the untouchable management. Judge Jonathan Rose later praised the investigation as intelligent and determined work. The net was methodically, patiently, and relentlessly closing in, but the gang, blinded by greed and arrogance, didn't seem to notice. The police were building a rock-solid case, but it was incredibly dangerous work. If you appreciate the dedication of law enforcement in complex cases like this, hit that like button to show your support. Now, for the moment, it all came crashing down. The downfall. After months of meticulous intelligence gathering, surveillance, and undercover operations, West Yorkshire police were finally ready to strike. They had mapped the hierarchy, identified the key players, and pinpointed the nerve centers of the operation. A series of coordinated, simultaneous raids were launched across Bradford, designed to decapitate the Sully Line in a single, decisive blow. The operation was fast, forceful, and overwhelming. At the home of the store man, Amir Raymond, officers smashed their way in to find hundreds of drug deals, already packaged and ready to be sold on the streets that day. At other addresses across the city, police seized wads of cash, multiple mobile phones containing incriminating records, and drug-dealing paraphernalia that laid bare the sheer scale and profitability of the enterprise. The arrest sent a shockwave through the entire network. Some of the conspirators, realizing the game was up, tried to run. In a move of sheer desperation and arrogance, the trusted lieutenant, Mujahid Mahmood, fled the country midway through his trial. After giving evidence on a Friday, where he falsely claimed to be broke, he was bailed over the weekend. He used that opportunity to abscond, catching a flight to Islamabad, Pakistan, believing he could escape justice forever. It was a desperate gamble, but the trial simply went on without him. The mountain of evidence, phone records, surveillance footage, and undercover testimony, was just too strong to be denied. At Bradford Crown Court, the full, shocking story of the Sully Line was revealed to the public. Prosecutors meticulously laid out the structure of the business, presenting the undeniable phone records linking the leadership to the street deals. Faced with such overwhelming evidence, many of the defendants had no choice but to plead guilty. The judge, Jonathan Rose, slammed the operation, describing it as a wicked and greedy trade in Class A drugs that had preyed on the vulnerable and made an estimated £4 million in just over a year. The sentences handed down were severe, reflecting the gravity of the conspiracy. In total, 13 men and 1 woman were jailed for a combined total of more than 80 years. The leaders, who had insulated themselves from the risk, received the heaviest sentences. Muhammad Iyaz, a director, was jailed for 13 years and 2 months. His brother and fellow director, Muhammad Hassan, was put away for 11 years and 4 months. The third director, Tasawwur Aslam, received a 10-year sentence. The communications man, Sheraz Mahmood, was jailed for 5 years and 4 months, while the store man, Amir Raymond, got 8.5 years. Even lower-level dealers like Harim Hussein were given significant prison terms, sending a clear message down the entire criminal chain. And what about Mujahid Mahmood, the lieutenant who ran? He was convicted in his absence and sentenced to 10 years. Months later, when he decided to fly back to the UK, he was arrested at the airport and taken straight to prison. For his attempt to flee, the judge added another 4 months to his sentence, telling him bluntly, "You are a coward." A total of over 80 years behind bars. Was justice served? Let me know what you think about these sentences in the comments. And stick around, because we're about to wrap up what this landmark case means for the future of fighting organized crime. The fall of the Sully Line was a monumental victory for West Yorkshire Police and a landmark case in the fight against organized crime in the UK. It sent a clear and resounding message to other criminal networks. No matter how slick, how corporate, or how seemingly untouchable an enterprise is, it can be brought down. The very thing that made the Sully Line so successful, its centralized, phone-based corporate structure, also created its greatest vulnerability. It generated a massive digital paper trail, a web of calls and cell site data that, with enough resources and determination, led investigators directly to its core. The intelligent and determined work, praised by the judge, which painstakingly connected thousands of phone calls to hundreds of drug deals, was what ultimately allowed police to dismantle an empire built on addiction and misery. The case serves as a stark illustration of the devastating impact of the modern drug trade, which increasingly mimics legitimate business models to maximize profit and minimize risk. But more importantly, it shines a powerful light on the often unseen investigators who work tirelessly for months, even years, to unpick these complex networks and bring their operators to justice. The business that famously never closes was finally and decisively out of business. What part of this story shocked you the most? Was it the corporate structure, the staggering number of calls, or the brazen escape attempt of the lieutenant? Let us know in the comments section below. If you found this breakdown of the Sully Line fascinating and want to see more deep dives into complex criminal investigation from the UK and beyond, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Liking and sharing this video helps our channel grow and ensures more people can learn about these incredible and important investigations. Thank you for watching.